hang on just a minute, I wanna make sure that we're going.
I see a red light on.
Okay. We're ready, go ahead.
So you're gonna do roll call?
I will do roll call. Vice Chair Christensen,
Here.
Board Member Breeziak,
Here.
Board Member Areno, Board Member Henderson, Board Member Hopping, Board Member Brydchucky.
Here.
And we're gonna go to the approval of the agenda. Do we need a motion to do that?
So
No.
moved.
No, we don't. Okay. And we'll go to election of officers, and I'm assuming what we would do on that is start with nominations. Are we doing both chair and vice chair? Okay, then do we have any nominations?
I nominate Cindy Christensen to be chair. Makes sense.
Second.
Okay.
We elect her by acclamation.
Do we, yeah, I say, do, go ahead and vote.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Or signify by aye by raising your hand. Okay,
There's only one problem that I can see. My term is up this year. So you would be having to do it again.
What year, Cindy? At 2020, well, it wouldn't be until,
March 1st.
no, our terms are different than the other boards and commissions. So if you're serving through 2020, your term wouldn't be up for a year.
All right, we got that then.
okay, so we voted, all those in favor, everybody, vice chair. Okay, so you are now the chair.
Okay.
Okay, now we'll take nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Jason Henderson.
I'll second.
Are you game?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
First and second? Okay, do you have any discussion or?
Well, Jason has been a pretty solid member of this thing. And he's done all that work on the attorney. And he's always participated, so I just think he'd make a good vice chair.
That's very kind of you.
Okay.
I'll work as hard as is required, so, sure, thank you. I appreciate the vote of confidence.
Do you wanna call for the vote? All those in favor signify by raising your hand.
Aye.
Are you not gonna vote?
Am I supposed to vote?
Yes.
That's me.
Okay. So it's unanimous, we have a new vice chair and a new chair. Okay,
So do we have a motion on minutes, from, what was that? December.
October one?
these are the October ones because in all actuality, I don't know what happened to the December ones. Colleen is out sick, I will bring them to the next meeting and we'll have them approved. These are for October.
Okay, when were the, and I'm sorry, if I had been feeling better, I would have done the research. We had, now that's saying September back here, approval of the September 19th. No, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the minutes of the previous meeting. Which meeting was it where we were going to go back in and supplement? There was some language that was completely missing about, it had to do, we were amending a document.
Well, some of that's in here. I
Jason,
wonder-
I'm sorry, I am, my head is so full,
You
I'm
have to
so
talk loud.
sick.
Some of that amendment is actually in here. This might be what you're thinking of.
Okay,
If you look at it, it's the, where we were recording what lines we were changing on the memo to the council. And so it was just recording what we had
okay,
stricken from the draft and so forth.
okay,
And
alright,
last time we looked at this, you said, hey, can we come back and have more specifically what the language was? And I think that's what this is.
okay.
Get a motion in a second.
We have not.
Okay, sure.
So we need a motion and a second on the minutes.
Move to approve the minutes.
I'll second. So can we
Okay.
have a vote on the minutes?
All those in favor signify by raising your hand.
I wasn't here. It's,
Would you guys like a moment to,
Yeah, take a moment to look on
this could be a discussion.
If you don't vote, Jack,
we don't have a quorum, and I understand.
we do not have a quorum.
Yeah, so I will.
Okay,
However, I'm kind of taken aback by all the stuff that's been struck out.
I hate to table these, but I guess I'm a little confused too, and maybe not as prepared as I should be.
that's fine, whatever you guys wanna do.
Yeah. No, it's not that the minutes are that way, because I wasn't here. I'm just kind of interested in what was struck out of it. Not that it wouldn't be a clear reflection of what happened.
Wendy, do you mind answering a couple of questions about this that might help me get to a point?
Not a problem at all.
Okay, so we were asking that the minutes reflect the language of the actual motion. So what we're seeing here, we have some language that's been crossed out. So that must have been language that was original to the set of minutes. And then the language that's in all caps, is that the new language?
Yes.
And it's too bad Mr. Reno isn't here to refresh everybody's memory.
What is it, I might remember, but, and if we can't figure it out, we can always take it. But like, what is it you're trying to remove?
Well, I just, I know we had talked about working with establish some kind of contact with the owner developer of Columbine Square. And that there was, when I left September, the chairman asked, kind of indicated that the idea was that we'll send some representatives to, if necessary, to California to discuss it with them. And if it was in the minutes here, why would we take it out?
Well, this isn't from the, so just to be clear, and forgive me if I'm
It's
stating the obvious. What this is reflecting is originally our memo to the council had everything you see, and before we turned it over to the council, we struck the stuff that's turned red and redlined. And so in other words, before we delivered to the council, we struck that sentence, I think really just because it was it was just wordy, honestly. Because it was sufficient to say aggressively pursue contact and effective interaction with the landowner, and then we struck the rest of the line. So that's an example.
And didn't the original set of minutes just reflect that there was a motion to amend lines 52 through 58?
Yes, right.
And so the language, and I think that's where I'm a little, it looks to me like most everything within the quotation marks is new to our draft of minutes.
That's right.
And that makes more sense to me.
Right,
Okay.
yeah, it's just, and it's reflecting here what was changed in the memo that we gave to council.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm okay with it, where everyone else is.
okay, then I move to approve.
We already have a motion on the table.
Was there a second, Wendy?
There was.
Okay.
Chair Christensen and Vice Chair Henderson made the motion and Chair Christensen seconded. So all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, the motion carries 4-0.
Okay, so now we have announcements. Do we have any announcements? Anybody, or anything we need to do? Okay, public appearances. Do we have any members of the public who wish to appear? Can you come right up and sit down, and you have 3 minutes. I gotta get my timer.
I could get one.
I got my clock.
You got yours? Okay.
I've got my clock.
Good evening. Lift Ward. My name is Jeannie Erickson, and I live in District 1, which is right over by Columbine Square. I look at it many times a day. I watched the City Council study session on Tuesday evening, and it looks as though a vote will be taken to see if Lyft will be dissolved. Since this round of urban renewal was re-evolved going on 6 years ago by the previous city manager who was fired, it was not done in the normal way in which urban renewal is done, so to be successful. There was never a project, which there should be. Before an urban renewal area is established, there should be a project. There has never been true slum and blight in Littleton, in my humble opinion, and maybe that is why it hasn't been beneficial for Littleton. The Columbine Square property was a somewhat thriving strip mall when they were deemed slummed and blighted, and did not look anything like it does today. The owners decided to kick everyone out by not renewing their leases after they were put into the urban renewal area. Not before. They were thriving before that. The property has been left sitting as seen since that time. It is obvious they do not want any help from urban renewal. The rest of the businesses in this area seem to be doing just fine also, since the survey Lyft and the city jointly did showed they do not want any help from Lyft either. I would like to thank all of you for your service and for the time that you spent trying to get things in order on this board. I have either attended or watched every single meeting for the last 5 years. And I know you folks put in a lot of time on trying to get things going from the ground up, trying to get the application ready in case somebody came forward. I mean, all very important things that need to be done. And that somehow were poo-pooed by some people on this board. Like, you know, why do we need to do that? Why do we need to do this? You did all of this without an executive director or your own attorney, which wasn't easy. And your dedication and hard work and time are very much appreciated by the citizens of Littleton and by myself. Thanks for trying to make Littleton a better place for all of us to live.
Thanks, Jeannie.
Thank you.
I just have one crazy unrelated comment. It's Carol's birthday today.
Oh.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
So glad you decided to spend it with us.
What a present.
Really?
What a gift to you.
Yeah. Giving me a present.
I would just show him.
Okay, so now we're going to debrief.
I'm sorry, can I?
I'm sorry, go ahead. Didn't see you back there.
And that was Linda Knifke, by the way, who was in District 4. My name is Pam Shepard and I live in District 1, and I'll echo what Jeannie said. I think that our Urban Renewal Authority in Littleton was given an unfair task, which is to try and invent urban renewal without a project. The whole point of urban renewal is that it's expensive and burdensome, but it's supposed to help a project that is seriously needed. And we didn't have that in Littleton in 2014. We didn't have it. And so the Urban Renewal Authority was set up without a project. A plan was actually released without any substance of a project to support. How can you come up with financing for no project? There's no structure for what the whole point of an urban renewal authority is for under our state law. So, like Jeannie, I really appreciate your service and your time, but the task you were given was impossible. After 5 years, I hope the city council does vote to unwind LIFT, and then if a project comes, we can do this right. And maybe you folks will consider coming back at that point, I don't know, but if we never have a project, then we don't need urban renewal in Littleton, and that would be fine. So thanks again for coming and being here and trying, and but you were given something unfair to do. The state law needs a reason for a city to undertake this, and we never had it. So thanks.
Thank you. Now we can turn it over to Reed, who's going to go ahead and give us the
Hey, so, I assume all of the board members have had an opportunity to either have observed the study session that occurred on the 7th with city council, or have heard and learned about the direction that they've given staff. So at the study session on the 7th, staff did not present any recommendations for city council, but the purpose of it was to discuss LIFT not, at least tabling the amended motion to the cooperation and loan agreement, pending hopefully from, and I don't mean to put words in LIFT's mouth, but the opportunity to better negotiate the terms of that cooperation and loan agreement. After LIFT tabled that motion indefinitely, there were, pursuant to the cooperation and loan agreement, kind of that default provision, that breach of contract, if you will, which was the repayment of those amounts that had been advanced by the city to LIFT that were due no later than December 16th, 2019. During the study session, the direction that was given by a majority of city council was for me to prepare paperwork to repeal that urban renewal district, the Columbine Square urban renewal area, and disband LIFT, if you will. Pursuant to state law and urban renewal, they're kind of tied, both a plan and an area are tied with the board. So you need to have an area designated to actually have the board. And so if you repeal the Columbine urban renewal area, you're also in effect disbanding the board. So the direction I've been given is to prepare that for council's consideration. I believe first reading on that ordinance will take place on January 21st with a public hearing on that and Wendy, jump in if I'm making up council dates, but I believe that would be February 4th is when that would go before city council.
Correct.
And a public hearing would happen, so members of the public would have an opportunity to weigh in one way or another, or perhaps a completely different way in terms of options for city council. As I said, staff did not make a recommendation. Obviously, council was aware of the ability for them to disband LIFT, to repeal that urban renewal area, to schedule a study session with LIFT to potentially negotiate the terms of that amended loan agreement that some members of LIFT did not find were putting LIFT in the best position to succeed in the job at hand. But council gave direction to prepare this paperwork, and so we'll see what happens on February 4th. During the meeting, just for those who may not be aware, who are following from home, Kevin Seiler did resign his position as chairperson of the board during that meeting, after the direction council gave to myself and Mr. Ralph was to prepare kind of dissolution paperwork. So that's kind of my debrief of what happened and where we are, and if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer those as best I can. And if no one has any questions, then we can proceed to, I guess, what I think are the next steps in terms of what that means, assuming that the city council does vote to repeal that urban renewal area and disband Lyft. So,
I have a question.
yes.
Just so I understand, I thought at the end of the study session that the council had asked for you to draft the demand letter.
Draft a demand letter.
Dissolution. But I didn't know about that, or at least I didn't internalize that they also wanted you to draft the repeal of the URA.
You can't have a URA without a URA, if that makes sense.
You can't, so, in other words, you couldn't have the area, in other words, if you disband Lyft, then the area also has to be removed, is that right?
Correct.
That perked up my ears as well, because this board operated without an urban renewal area for 2 or 3 years, which I've never heard that we had to have an urban renewal area in order to exist. I'm not arguing.
That's how the board starts out,
Okay.
you know.
I understand that's how it starts out, but I also know that this board continued to exist for years without an urban renewal plan that had not been completed. Because the riverfront plan was complete, there was no activity, they were having an annual meeting, and that was it, so sounds like
Correct, that may be true, you may be right.
It doesn't matter,
No,
I was just curious.
Jason's a good point.
Well, I think the board can exist, but it needs an obligation. And we could promote another project if we wanted to, because that's allowed in the law, so we don't have to have that. But on the other hand, if the city doesn't want us, I say, fine. Because then one of these days, one of these years, the developer's gonna come in and have the big gee whiz show and get everybody excited. And of course, the city council's gonna add every bell and whistle they can to the project, and the developer's gonna say, well, if you want this, I need this. And then where's their vehicle to provide this?
you'll have to
Cause
start.
that's what, they're gonna have to start out anew.
Yeah.
And they get to start out with the new changes to the law. And they get to deal with all the negotiations with the school board and South Metro and any other special district we have sitting around here. And I just think, well, that ought to be fun.
My question for you, Reed, on the next steps, is it really appropriate for us to get the next steps from you rather than from our attorney? Or are there 2 sets of next steps that we need to consider?
Well, I mean, the next steps are all, you know, they're speculative at this point until council actually votes. I think we've seen it in the history of the city of Littleton where a lot of things that were thought to go one way at the last minute went a different direction than what everyone anticipated. So until the votes are actually in, it is largely speculative, but in terms of you know, there is kind of the, I guess I can be pretty high level in terms of that, which is pursuant to state statute, if the decision was to wind down Lyft, there's a 6-month, it can't be any less than 6 months. And so for the purpose of that, I believe the intent was to make sure that bills coming in could be serviced during that time, get the financial affairs involved. Obviously, there hasn't been a project and there's not a lot of outstanding obligations. I think Lyft has perhaps maybe the payment for the study and perhaps Mr. Murray, Lyft's attorney,
I just got that today.
who appeared. But other than that, there's not a lot of, we're not anticipating bills coming in as you might see on an active urban renewal area and an active urban renewal project that's in place. But I think it was really in order, assuming that there is a vote to repeal and dissolve, the board still needs to function during that time. There are obligations that the board will have to do, whether it's professional obligation or a fiduciary duty, to make sure that the board winds down those affairs. So, for example, I believe, and the board can correct me if I'm wrong, but Mr. Seiler was the individual in charge of the actual account.
Right.
He's the signatory. So, I mean, Lyft is gonna need to work and Cindy is gonna need to work with Kevin to get her name on that account. You know, if there's an actual ledger and checkbook, that's something that Lyft needs to gain control of in order to be able to issue checks. And so they're just those little things and kind of a reminder that if this is the direction that council goes, that council still needs this board to exist for the foreseeable future, because if we don't have a quorum, then you can't vote to repay certain entities. So property taxes are gonna come in. They're gonna be coming to this board on December 15th, the county certifies them. You don't actually get those until, I wanna say, June 15th or July 15th. So you're gonna get a check, it's gonna be nominal, but it is gonna come. If there is a winding down of affairs, you're going to need to remit, and we'll get information, or I'll have Tiffany provide you the information, to issue checks back to those various property taxing entities that had, and it's not a lot of money we're talking about. I think the property taxes that Lyft holds is a little over $1,000 in property tax. The increment in terms of a property tax has not gone up very much over the course of those, several years. I mean, but it is their money, it is, the county's money and the various other taxing entities. So that's something that I think the Lyft board will have to do, and then remitting whatever money back to the city is held by Lyft. So I mean, in terms of a high level, I kind of wanted to convey what it might look like and to give everyone somewhat of an expectation as to your own time. Is this something where you're going to need to meet every 2 weeks? No. It's probably one in which you'll need to come together as a board, once again, all assuming that this is the direction council continues with, to repay those obligations you have to the city, to remit back to the city the increment financing that Lyft holds, to pay off the property tax back to those various entities, those taxing entities. And little things like amending the budget. You're gonna need to do an amended budget in 2020. It probably makes more sense to do that after you're aware of all the monies that have come in, i.e. just really the county, cause they're gonna send something to your bank account for a few $100s. And so you're probably looking at a meeting, in the next month. And then maybe not one until this summer.
Are you saying after the 4th of February?
Yeah, after the 4th of February. So when city council passes an ordinance, the ordinance is technically effective after it gets published, so it's generally about 9 days. So it's usually 7 plus 2, so they vote on something on a Tuesday, you wait a week, and then Thursday is when it gets published, so it would probably be technically going into effect on February 13th. And so if Lyft were going to act to start remitting any monies back to the city, it would probably be best to wait until the ordinance is in effect and council has actually given that direction and made that decision.
Well, the 13th is our normal meeting date.
Yeah.
Oh, handy. Okay.
So then after the 13th of February, you're basically saying that it may not be that we need to meet every month. We might be able to take care of what we need to take care of maybe every couple months or something like that, just depending on how all of this moves forward.
Yeah, I mean, if that, I believe your authority as the chairperson, you have the authority to issue, up to $25,000? And so if some random bill came in between now and then, would Lyft need to convene to pay a $300 bill? I have no idea what the bill might be for, but I would not say that that would be something that would be necessary. You have the authority as a chair to issue that check. And then really the cleanup comes once you get that final check from the county, amend the budget to reflect the monies that came in and the monies that went out, zero that out as Bill Hopping would like to do. And then I think we're done. There may be some, I've never dissolved an urban renewal authority, so there might be some paperwork to file with the state. But I don't think anything largely substantive would be occurring over that period of time up until maybe one of those final meetings.
Reed, when the ordinance is finalized or
If,
approved on a second reading, does the council notify the county or is it incumbent upon Lyft to notify the county? And when the county gets notified, will they at that point no longer remit increment to us?
I think they're locked into doing that based upon December 15th, so they're going to.
Okay,
They've already calculated that, that's my understanding.
okay. Can,
I can certainly follow up in regard to
yeah, I'd like to know,
notifications.
and I'm wondering if there's any way that we can kind of preempt some of this return of increment. If we know we're not gonna be in existence, we also know that we have agreements that we won't keep any of the property tax from the Columbine Square, from any of the taxing entities. I'm wondering if we can initiate a letter to the county explaining all of the circumstances.
You know, when I had an opportunity to speak with Tiffany this evening, at least it was the impression that I received is that there wasn't a way to kind of stop them from sending it to you and depositing it into your account. It's my understanding.
They keep sending it even after we've closed doors? I mean, that doesn't make sense.
No, and you're right, they are gonna have to have some notification, whether that's Lyft's obligation to do that or the city's, that's something I'll find out. And we'll make sure that it gets accomplished, if indeed that's what ends up happening.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, but this property tax remittance is from 2019, that's what you guys are getting, so that's why it's kinda coming whether or not you want it or not.
So do we have any responsibility to our silent partners that aren't here? The other taxing districts, such as school board or
Talking
something?
about LPS and South Suburban
Yeah,
and South Metro.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which, yeah, and I think we'll get you the percentages in terms of,
Do we have to write them a letter?
Yeah, there's a
Right.
couple of small little districts over in that area. I mean, they get
Yeah.
produced $2 or something like that. It's
You're right.
silly, but they're a taxing entity.
right, and I'll have Tiffany prepare that information for you, so you'll know exactly who's getting what, based upon what finally comes in. So with your existing property tax that's being held, this, $1,100 plus whatever the county remits to you, we'll have that final number and we'll have the percentages, the mills that each of those are entitled to, so we'll be able to provide that information and then Cindy can issue checks to those entities.
Reed, do you know of the money that we've received in the past, when it comes to us, is it have a memo attached to it saying that this is increment from South Metro, this is increment from South Suburban, this is increment from LPS? Or does it come in one lump sum and we're gonna have to untangle what belongs to whom?
No, I hope not. I hope
I wanna say that we know which percentage, and I'm looking through a fourth quarter financial. That we know what percentage are being held that were attributable to, say, South Suburban or one of these
Okay,
entities.
and
And
would
I'm
the,
sorry, I told Tiffany that, no, we won't need to get into finances, you don't need to come, but no, I think she's probably watching at home going, told you I should have gone.
I'd be shocked if she's watching at home.
She is watching, I guarantee you.
And would the
Okay.
percentages be the same now as they were 5 years ago? Have there been any tax, I mean, South Suburban's had some tax questions on the ballot that they've been successful. I don't know if it impacted our increment or not. So
Are you
if-
talking about various mills that may have changed over the course of the 4
Exactly,
years?
so the
and
mill
how we
levy,
keep track of
it
that?
could be different today than it was 5 years ago for,
And it would be with South Metro, so
of course.
Yeah.
I have full confidence that the city's finance department and Tiffany will.
Okay, so they'll
Keep
take
track.
care of that for us, is
They'll-
what you're saying, okay. What else we have?
Well, we could always resurrect my motion from last month that we just disband, give them the money back right now, and we don't even have to wait for the these council action.
And I mean, realistically, if we have our ducks in a row, is there any reason why we can't go ahead and take care of all of the payments and be done with it and then just convene whatever that date is, 6 months out for our final meeting? I don't see any reason to drag all of the check writing out till the very end.
And I would say for the bulk of the tax increment financing, those monies could be remitted in relatively short order. I mean, we know what those numbers are, we know how much Lyft holds. It's just that really small amount of the property tax increment that needs to be remitted that you won't have a final number until after July 15th.
Okay. Has there been any discussion at all about the increment from the Riverfront Authority that was never returned to the city, that was obligated to be returned to the city as being part of our ledger of what it is that we owe the city?
And as far as an additional obligation that
Yeah,
Lyft
but
may
there was
have,
over $82,000 in the account, the Colo Trust account.
Mhm.
Before we initiated the 4 new urban renewal areas. And that was money that was due to the city of Littleton, but the Urban Renewal Authority at that time decided to hold on to it rather than to give it to the city. That money was used to pay the consultant to go and find blight and create the 4 new urban renewal areas. Rather than, I mean, it was increment from Riverfront.
Mhm.
So it should have gone to pay the debt that was still outstanding at that time. Since then, the city's written that debt off. But nonetheless, it was money that was owed to the city and it was deliberately withheld from the city in order for this group to carry forward. Because,
The city demanded it.
no, they did not. This is in the Michael Penny days, so Michael Penny was all for this and actually wanted them to go forward and find blight. And Jim Taylor was holding the money in the account, and a good many of the Lyft board members had no idea there was that kind of money sitting there. And
I think
it
it's-
became needed.
This is just my opinion, I feel like the best thing to do would be to ask the city, since they're demanding money anyway, to go ahead and look at their books, and if they wanna demand more, they can demand more, but I'm not gonna pay a bill if nobody gives it to me. You know, so
Right.
if we wait for a demand, you know. Cause we can't know until somebody gives us a bill.
Well, all residual's gonna go to the city anyway, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There won't be anything left.
You know, what would happen if we just decided to cease business today the city would have to clean up the
I mean,
mess.
if lightning struck all four of us?
Yeah, like, we just say, we're not coming back with the city.
We really hope you're not gonna do that, though.
I would just like the debt to be taken care of, rather than just return money. I'd like the books to show, because the public was told there would be no cost to the public whatsoever for the lift board to function. And I wanna make sure that our debt is clean, so it doesn't come back saying that we left the city a debt, the way the Riverfront Authority left the city with a debt.
No, I totally hear you, but if it's like, they're gonna have to present us with a record, you know, a real record. I'm not saying they don't get the money or they do get the money, or I'm just saying without somebody actually coming to us and saying, and demanding it, we don't have the records.
Oh, we do. It's all recorded in the minutes.
Okay.
And there's banking
The
records
best
to
we
back
can
it up.
do is, I could ask council to go back to the city and say, Lyft would like to make sure that you're demanding all the money that you owed. That's the bet. We don't represent the council in that way.
I understand. But we represent ourselves
Sure.
and we have the debt.
It's definitely worth noting. It's definitely, yeah.
Well, if the city wrote off what you're talking about, it's done, it's gone.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. But
Honestly, there might be record of that too. I actually have no idea, but.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm asking.
Yeah.
But
I want the
we
records
earned
clean.
interest on, so we've got true retained earnings that we're just gonna give the city. And I have all the confidence in the world that Tiffany will get it all worked out and we'll just be sitting here, seeing it die one day.
Yeah.
Saying, pay it and that's it. We'll walk out of here, turn off the lights. And I have Thursday nights free again.
It's the end of Cheers.
There must be
Describe
something
it.
on TV.
Do we know if Joseph is just out tonight or?
Oh, he's sick.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. So
I
he
I
hasn't
mentioned
quit.
it earlier and I think you might have stepped away at the moment. I apologize.
Okay.
No, he's really sick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
So before well, actually, I wanna wait till, I guess after your next step, but I wanted to make an observation for the record, it's not a bad one. But I should wait until we're done with the next steps portion. Is there anything else that you wanted to describe to us?
No, I mean, as far as next steps, just in terms of, and obviously I wasn't around for the Riverfront days and whatever happened in terms of that, but we obviously know how much Lyft has, which is about 429,000 as of December 31st in cash. There's a little over $1,016 being owed in property taxes that have been held by Lyft, and the rest is the tax financing that Lyft has received over the few years. And so there's enough cash on hand to settle obligations that Lyft has, whatever those obligations may be. But no, I don't have anything in terms of next steps. It's other kind of waiting to see to find out what city council does, and
Yep.
if council proceeds in a particular direction, then maybe convening a meeting shortly thereafter for the board to decide as to when they feel it's appropriate to make any repayment arrangements at that time. But my unsolicited advice would be to get Lyft's accounting in order in terms of becoming a signatory on that account right now. I'm not sure if anyone has spoken with Mr. Seiler. I know he was probably really disappointed with the discussion that was happening with council, and so I can appreciate his thoughts on how that went.
Do you want me to ask him to contact you? I can email him or call him.
You can do that, or I can just call him.
Just call him? Okay.
So I just need to get the checkbook from him, and then does he need to go to the bank to change the,
I think he'll need to be with you.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, then I will call him and get that
Okay.
taken care of. Better make myself a note to do that. I don't remember those things as easy as I used to.
Okay.
Okay, so done with next step. Do we have any comments, reports?
Just one comment, Cindy, knowing that we're winding down, and I would like for us to take a little bit more meticulous minutes through that process so that it's well documented, everything that we're doing, rather than keep it to just, I don't want a lot of detail, but I'd like for the detail to be in there so that we know what it is that we've committed ourselves to doing, so that we get it done.
I just wanted to make the comment, Ms. Chairman, do you mind if I?
Go ahead.
First of all, I just wanted to thank Kevin for his service, and I know that he put a lot of emotional time and treasure and you know, time especially into his service, and it's very meaningful. One thing I take personal responsibility for is our task back when we had the breakfast and council asked us to come with a plan. We built our memo in such a way that it was in the end very disappointing to them. If you read between the lines, what council was expressing was, we thought you were going to come to us with a plan, like you know, let's pave over, let's rent Columbine Square, or let's make a Arc de Triomphe over an intersection. And if in fact we had done that, that would have made them happier, even if such things had been impossible. And the only way it actually would have been perfectly received is if we had said, listen, we've looked into building the Arc de Triomphe, and this is what we'd have to do, and this is how many meetings we're gonna have to have regularly, back and forth communication. And I think when they do this again in the future, that's what they're really gonna need is because this is a creature of the council, they need to think of us as being something like an extended family that they're getting constant feedback with. We need Ms. Grove or whoever, you know, if we actually end up doing this or in the future, we would need that person reporting back to the council regularly saying, they're talking about building an Arc de Triomphe using urban renewal. How does that sound to you? Hey, let's have a meeting about it this week. Because by not doing that and then coming back to them with some very high level discussion saying, hey council, let us know what you're thinking. What we weren't thinking about was that by being so disconnected from them, they forgot that they created us. They forgot that we were not some company out there that owed them $400,000. They thought of us as strangers who borrowed money and weren't paying it back and were being irascible. So that can be fixed in the future. You know, and I look forward to seeing what people do. You know, it's completely doable. It's just we got crosswise. That's my personal opinion. That's my whole comment.
See, my take on it is different.
Yes, sir.
I think when we all arrived, this board was dysfunctional because we did not have an executive director. And even though our best efforts, that was the thing that was holding us back. Look how much time you spent trying to get an attorney.
Yeah.
Look how much time Carol and I spent trying to write some new stuff. We had an executive director who could answer some of the questions, have a liaison with the city departments, have a liaison with planning and zoning, have a liaison with anybody else that would have a hand in all these projects coming in. That way you'd have some guidance and we'd get the letters of agreement, but that individual would be expensive. We could have burned up all our money doing that. We chose not to, which is fine, you know, so then we had some suggestions about how we could do it on the cheap. see if we can get rid of some blight. That didn't seem to work out, that's fine. But what the city council needs to do, in my opinion, is disband us. If they want a functional thing, the city council needs to be for renewal, because they can take money that isn't there. We can't manufacture tax money. We can't manufacture it unless we have a project.
Yeah.
The city council can divert funds and have their own executive director. Put them in an office somewhere in city hall and do all that stuff and go out and promote. But if you don't do the promotion and you don't have the executive director to do it during the month, that's our problem. We're all too busy. I could have put more effort in, but I got a private business I'm running. Which you think I would spend more time on? Which you think has my priority?
Right.
Mrs. Rychecki has my priority. Let me tell you, then the business, then Lyft, okay? So, that's what what my perspective is, that without the executive director, when we all arrived here, it was just, and no matter how good of a chairman or officers we had, or how attentive we board members are, it just wasn't set up to begin with. That's, and if I did look at it in retrospect, I'm gonna say, well, we should have just been pushing for that up front before we got the attorney, but we didn't.
Can I just, really quickly, I also wanna thank the community who have been here so many times over the years. It has been just extraordinarily wonderful, hearing these comments and their reading and everything. And I've learned a lot and from the community especially, and it just means so much to me. So thank you.
And my guess is next time there's an urban renewal plan created in Littleton, it will have a project. Because that was what doomed us,
Yeah.
And we are supposed to be independent. We are not supposed to be that, council has a responsibility to approve the plan and approve the project that's in that plan. And then it's up to us to make it happen. We're not supposed to be going back and forth, trying to get direction from them. We're independent of them. And not having a project killed us.
Yeah.
Literally killed us. We have no purpose.
Any other comments? The only question I have is, we're a 7-person board, but now we're a 6-person board. Is that any kind of a problem? Because I can't imagine we're going to go out and recruit someone to.
Au contraire.
Sit on a board that is going away, I know.
Yeah,
I can't answer that right now, but I need to talk to Reed and to Mark and see where they wanna go with that.
Okay, that would be good, because that was my only concern.
And I will let you know, and then
That's great.
you can
I was
spit
only
that out to
thinking
the
about
rest
the
of them.
fact that we're 6-person, what does that mean for quorum and votes and things like that? It works better when you have 7.
It does.
You
You know,
need
you don't end
4
up with
for your quorum, and obviously having an odd number helps in case there's a vote.
That is a
That-
tie.
that
Can a
is
council
high.
member be a member of the board temporarily or for a period of time? We drag
No,
Mr.
council
Driscoll
can't.
back in here to.
No, we're
There
not gonna
used
do
to be
again.
that rule, that we had one on,
In the very
in
beginning.
the very, very beginning, but it, through the years, it got phased out, so, let me just talk to them and I'll get back to y'all.
Yeah, I would say,
Do you know if Joseph's was renewed? His term expired, and he had expressed to Kevin at the last meeting that he would serve again.
He did not say that to me, so I'll talk to him about that too.
Okay. I think what he said is he would serve again, but he wasn't gonna come and spend his Thursday nights if we were floundering. Something along those lines,
No, I don't know that it would be fat floundering, but
yeah.
Wind down,
it
can be
might be 2
exciting.
meetings. Okay,
I don't think he wanted to keep doing what we've been doing. He wanted to see some progress.
one way or the other.
So if our next meeting is on the 13th, then that we would be able to know what city council has done and talk about that. And then it would be great if we could get Tiffany here, I think,
I'll have
to
her.
go through, the dollars and cents of everything, so we know right where we are and what we need to do as far as writing the letters to different places and that kind of thing.
And if it would be possible, I think it would be helpful, instead of just having a financial, like what we normally have, if we could have some kind of a breakdown of the money, sales tax increment, property tax increment, the different taxing entities, the debt, the interest on the debt, everything kind of broken out so that we see the big picture in all of its pieces.
What else did you say? Sales tax, property tax, districts? My mind just went blank.
Well, the main point is just to figure out, like,
Oh,
so that,
interest.
so that we know who we're supposed to be
Yep.
refunding money to and how much.
Yep.
I think it'll be not mysterious at all to Tiffany.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I think it won't be either, and she'll probably just whip it right out there.
And as far as connecting with the county, is that something Cindy's going to do or something you'll do? I'd like to have that understood at the next meeting as well.
We're winding down, they need to know that we're,
Yeah, I'd like to know what they expect. Is there any way that they could see sending checks, or they're gonna have to keep sending checks even after we're gone? And then council deals with them, I don't know.
I will confer with Tiffany and see if we have a good answer for
Okay,
that. Get you the answer in terms of what the county is gonna require. She obviously has far more conversations with the county than I do.
okay.
But
yeah,
We
it
make
doesn't
sure-
make sense if there's not an urban renewal authority that you keep, collecting
Yeah,
that
but they,
increment and putting it,
they may have to.
yeah, they may have to. But it would be good to know, it would make us
A whole lot easier.
yeah, it would make our winding down a whole lot easier, we wouldn't have to keep meeting, so we will meet on the 13th, and then we'll have to take a look at what else we need to do and how soon that comes up and whether or not when we need to meet again.
Okay.
Assuming that we don't need to meet monthly all through the summer to get everything taken care of.
So February. Would the date in the ordinance be 6 months from the February 4th date, or would it be a date that's 6 months from the day that the ordinance was introduced?
I have to take a look at what the language says within the actual statute, the wind down provision. So it could, I know it's by ordinance, and I know the way that when our ordinance takes effect, which is 9 days after the date it went. So the actual technical winding down date, if that's the direction, will probably reflect something that says, what would be August 14th, don't make me do math, would be the earliest that it could wind down. But the information will be contained within the ordinance, I just don't have that date in my brain yet.
Okay, I think we're adjourned.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.